Good morning. This is week 5 of Social Work 636, and let's go over what's required for this week. First of all, for this week, we are looking at the processes of strategic planning and program design. The learning objectives are to describe the process of program development, describe the strategic planning process, and to examine the legal and regulatory issues in organizational practice. So for the various learning activities this week, let's first look at our learning resources. There are a number of chapters and articles required for this week. So in the Brody and Nair book, you have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. There are 2 articles, one on authority, power, and conflict in organizations, and the second on leadership from the Leadership Center on setting goals. There is a reminder for the week, and the reminder is that a draft of your program proposal part 3 is being introduced this week in the first discussion forum. So the revision for that will be due in week 6 for grading as a formal paper. There are two requirements for this week, one discussion post. And this week we'll introduce part 3 of the program funding proposal, which then you will revise for submission in week 6. So going back to chapter 3 of the Brody and Nair book, Designing and Developing Consumer-Oriented Programs, and part 3 of the Kettner et al. Book on planning, designing, and tracking the intervention. Using those resources, you will utilize also this template. And what I would say to you is when you do your submission, you can keep all this verbiage in, but when you do your final paper, please take out all of this information and just get to the meat of part 3 of your proposal. So this is going to require library research because you want to get at the theoretical reasoning for the program. In other words, again, what evidence, what theoretical basis do you have that what you are proposing will impact or address the unmet need you have identified? You've done some library research and provided some information, but now we need the theoretical framework. So you want theory-based reasoning for this part of your proposal. You also want to include your agency description in terms of why you think the agency can adapt to this new program. Program task, you've talked about goals and objectives. Now, what are some of the tasks that you have to engage in? How will you deliver the services, and who is responsible? So this is the required template for the discussion board post for week 5. You're going to do your initial post by Thursday of week 5, and your responses are due between Friday and Sunday. And make sure you're responding to the other 2 people assigned to your group. If someone in your group has not posted in a timely fashion, please feel free to provide feedback to another member of your class so that you can complete the required 2 posts. Next is the written assignment. So you completed part 2 for your discussion posts. You would have received feedback on part 2. So now you are submitting part 2, which was the budget piece and your evaluation plan now in terms of a formal paper. So that's the other assignment, which is due by Sunday of week 5. To speak a little bit about the concepts that were outlined in the readings, there is discussion of leadership. So I would begin by asking you, are you a leader? And hopefully 100% of you would now say yes. If you say no, then I will guarantee you that by the time you get your MSW degree, if you don't consider yourself a leader, others will consider you a leader by virtue of the fact that you now have this degree. So, hopefully by the end of this class, and definitely by the end of the time you graduate, you will feel comfortable in calling yourself a leader in the profession. There are a number of leadership styles. One is being directive. And a directive leader often feels that they have to take personal responsibility for all major decisions. They are sometimes viewed as authoritarian or autocratic. There is also the participative leader. And this leader allows others to have a voice. It's seen as being a much more democratic leader. There is also what we call the transformative leader. And this type of leader initiates change. They are proactive versus always being reactive. The transformative leader is a mentor, allows others to grow, sees individual strengths even when people don't see their own strengths, and is very open to feedback and change. The laissez-faire leader is not really a leader. They're your passive-aggressive person, don't really make a decision, kind of wait around to see what will happen, not proactive at all, and they pass on their authority. The charismatic leader, often people follow this leader because they like them. They are people that individuals like to be around. But the danger is that there develops what we often call a cult of personality, where in the end, things really don't get done. People are so enamored by the individual that they don't realize that things aren't getting done until that person leaves. So it's nice to be a person that everyone wants to be around, but I would say to you, in terms of administration, don't get into being an administrator because you want to be liked. You want to be respected, but often you do have to make tough decisions that not everyone will like, but hopefully they will respect the process that was derived to make those decisions. A visionary leader is like the transformative leader. They are proactive. They have the best interest of the staff and treat staff with dignity. They have good listening skills, good clinical skills. A visionary leader is an honest leader. They do not promise what they cannot deliver. If they make a mistake, they own up to it and they don't throw others under the bus. So they are trustworthy, and they demonstrate high degrees of emotional intelligence, which means that they're self-aware, they are self-regulating, they exhibit empathy, and they are a motivator. In terms of strategic planning, when we engage in strategic planning, it's because it's time to review the mission and the vision of the organization. And if we don't have a vision, maybe it's a time to establish a visionary statement. Also a time to do a SWOT analysis, which is looking at organizational strengths, weaknesses, what opportunities exist out there for the organization, and what are the threats to organizational survival. Time to set new goals and objectives. This is a living document, not an exercise that one engages in and then puts it up on a shelf, and there's a timetable. The readings also talked about program implementation. So this is the time to develop those tasks that we need to engage in to achieve goals and objectives. A good administrator has to use good problem-solving approaches to get tasks done. And so just as clinicians must do, working with clients, administrators must also use problem-solving skills. Someone that has good clinical skills as a base will also be able to transfer those skills into being a good supervisor and a good administrator. So in terms of an overview, that's week 5. If you have any questions, please make sure to get to me as soon as you can. And I look forward to reading your post and reading your part 2 of your proposal. Have a great day.